My last relationship ended almost 3 years ago. Have I accepted it? So here's the thing, it's been 3 years, but here I am still talking about it all over YouTube. Does that mean that I'm over it? A lot of people would say that because I'm still talking about it, that I'm not over it, and I'm gonna push back against that. I think it's important to talk about the context of what happened in my relationship, my last relationship with my ex, to understand, like, why am I still talking about it? Why am I here on this channel doing all of this? And what does that mean about moving on and accepting that it's over? At the end of that 3-year relationship, my ex broke up with me and I was not ready to break up. And let's talk about why, because a lot of my friends were like, this is taking like way too long. You should be over him. You should not be talking about it so much. And clearly I'm still talking about it. So did I accept that this breakup is happening? Did I accept that the relationship had ended? Well, for me, the simple answer is yes, I'm here. I'm survived and I'm totally okay with the way that things are right now in my life. But back then I was having a really hard time, and I was having a really hard time because during our relationship the dynamic was intense, the dynamic was crazy, and maybe it didn't seem that way from the outside because during the relationship I kept a lot of stuff in. I wasn't communicating with outside people about what was happening in the relationship because I was trying to keep the relationship together because we were having problems, but I wanted to see things work out. So when there were problems, when there was difficulties, I held a lot of that in, and once the breakup happened, it was kind of like the valve got open and busted open, and now all the emotions I was holding in, trying to make things work, had to come out somewhere, and that happened with friends. Our relationship was like just the wrong amount of stable and all over the place crazy, because we would have like plateaus of things being good and fine, and that's why I liked the relationship. That's why I wanted to stay in it in the first place, because it was like, okay, this is good. This is like what I always wanted, a nice stable thing. But then every now and then something would happen between us and silent treatment would start, and there was this intensity of emotion, and as I've talked about here a few times, there was cheating going on as well. So those times were the times when the relationship was really hard, and that back and forth between stable and intense made things very confusing. So you can imagine that when my ex wanted to break up with me, and this was not 3 years ago, this was even longer, like way in the beginning of the relationship and throughout the relationship, there were multiple times that he wanted to break up with me, and I didn't want that. So I encouraged us to keep moving on, to keep trying new things. But each time it was like, well, I don't know how serious this is because we keep trying, and these are problems that are solvable, so why do I want to break up right now? So basically, each time that we broke up, I had a hard time accepting it because we just continued on after that anyway. So when it came time to like the final breakup or whatever we want to call it, I was like, well, this isn't really happening because we've been through this before and we'll figure out a way to continue from here. What I'm really getting at here is that back and forth and that constant trying and trying and trying again makes it hard to accept any breakup, because previous threats of breakup or previous attempts at breakup never actually went through. So why would this one be any different? Okay, so but there was a final breakup. So what happened there? Because it was talked about in therapy, there was a therapist involved, so it wasn't like I could deny that this was happening, and he was very clear that this was final. But why did I have trouble accepting that? Well, as I said, I kept wanting to make this relationship work. So once we got to that point, it didn't really matter to me that this was final for him. I was still trying to figure things out, and that's how it is when you're the one who is still trying to hold on, when you're the person who is getting dumped. You know, you are not on board with the idea of ending the relationship, and I was still at this point not on board. Even after all the cheating, even after all the arguments, even after all that we'd been through, I felt like we put 6 years into this relationship, like we can still find a way here. We've got a therapist on our side. So basically for me, I just kept trying to find ways to continue. So even though he had started not going to therapy appointments, I was like, well, that's okay. I'll look up some information and I'll figure this out. You know, I was on YouTube looking up all the videos, probably like you're doing now. Then when he wouldn't come home, I was like, well, that's okay. That's, you know, he just needs his space. I'll figure this out. Like, I'll just give him his space. And I was like plotting, like, what can I do to give him what he needs to keep this going? Then when I saw signs that he was maybe with some other people, or he was withholding some information from me, I was like, all right, this really sucks, but we've been through things like this before. Like, I just kept pushing the line back further and further. I was like, I'll find a way. This is complicated, but he's not 100% gone yet, so I'll figure this out. What it really comes down to is that I finally accepted it when I ran out of options, when it was like, there's nothing else I can do here. He's with somebody else now, and it's been a while. Even if it is a rebound relationship, he's not giving it up. And that's when I really finally accepted that the relationship was over. But again, I'm still here talking about it, so have I accepted it? All right, so here's the thing. I had friends telling me that I had not accepted it, you know, even if it was months after and he was in this new relationship with somebody and I was still holding on. I felt like, no, I have accepted it, like I know what's going on, but I kept talking about it and I kept being frustrated over it. So my friends had tried to push me into accepting it and tried to push me into moving on, you know, doing things on my own, pushed me to not talk about it anymore, to just let it go, basically. And I feel like that was maybe not the best thing to do. I think that a lot of friends kind of mess up here because they don't want to see us stuck in situations where we're hurting, and they definitely sometimes have valid reasons to want us to get out of dangerous situations. So I don't want to push that to the side, but when we're safe, when we're okay, but our mind just keeps replaying things from the relationship and we keep obsessing and all of that, it may not be the most mentally healthy thing to do, but it's also normal after a breakup, and it can take a while for that to undo. So I think friends mess up here because they don't want to see us hurting. They want to see us moving on. They want to see us at a healthier place, but they're rushing it. They're pushing it a little too far, too fast. In a way, what they could be doing to you, and what I felt like was being done to me, is that they could be invalidating your feelings and basically telling you not to feel the way that you feel. And that could be something that happened in your relationship that made your relationship so crappy to begin with. So it's not that good to continue to do it to somebody after they finally have left the relationship. Ultimately, grieving takes a long time, and everybody has a different timeline for how they grieve. And depending on how long your relationship is, it may take a longer time to get past that it's over, to accept that it's the end of that relationship. Everybody grieves in different ways, and although there is this idea that there is a prolonged grieving that's a little unhealthy, and that's something that a therapist can certainly help you with if that's something that you feel like you're going through, we really shouldn't push somebody to try to grieve on our timeline when they're the one that's in pain. So for me, I talk about my ex a lot here on my YouTube channel, and I don't obsess about my ex all day. Like, this is really just because this is the topic that I'm talking about. I'm talking about breakups, and I want you to relate to what I've gone through, and I want you to know that I can relate to what you've gone through. So I give examples of my ex and how I handled things. In a way, what I'm doing here is actually part of me moving on, because I started this channel and this whole journey of talking about mental health after I realized a lot of the problems that I had due to the things that happened with my ex and things that happened earlier in life. I really don't feel like there's any perfect time when you can say that somebody has accepted the end of a relationship. I still get angry about things that happened in that relationship. I still get sad over things. What do you think? When has somebody accepted the end of a relationship? Let me know down below in the comments.